Get ready! Part 2 of Early Riser's Blueprint, Unlock Your Potential at Sunrise is here. We're about to supercharge your mornings even further. If you're new to this series, take a moment to experience Part 1. It's the perfect launchpad for what we're about to achieve in Part 2. Let's make every sunrise count. Chapter 11. Embracing Life's Unpredictable Waves. I woke up at 4:45 a.m. feeling stronger than ever. My body was still adjusting to the new rhythm, but mentally, I felt sharper. There was something powerful about knowing I had already won the first battle of the day, the battle against comfort, against distraction, against the temptation to remain average. Rising at 5 a.m. had become more than just a habit. It was becoming a symbol of my commitment to living fully. The streets were still dark as I stepped outside, but I felt alive. Each breath of cool morning air seemed to strengthen my resolve. The silence gave me space to think, to reflect on what I was building and where I was headed. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving with purpose. Later that morning, I met with my mentor again. His eyes carried the same quiet strength they always did. Calm yet powerful. I knew there was something important he wanted to share. "You've been making progress," he said, "but there's something you need to understand." I nodded, sensing that this was going to be an important lesson. "Life," he began, "isn't linear. It doesn't unfold in a straight line. No matter how disciplined you become, no matter how strong your systems are, there will still be days when things fall apart. There will be seasons when your momentum slows, when doubt returns, and when obstacles seem impossible to overcome." I leaned in closer, knowing he was speaking from experience. "Most people quit in those moments," he continued. "They lose faith when things get hard. They forget that adversity isn't a sign they're failing, it's a sign they're growing. Every great achiever faces resistance, but what sets them apart is how they navigate those storms." His words struck me. I had always believed that if I built strong enough habits and stayed disciplined, success would naturally follow. But now I realized that struggle was inevitable, and I needed to prepare for it. "There are 4 mental disciplines," he said, "that will keep you strong when life tries to shake you. Master these and you'll build the resilience required to stay on track, no matter what comes your way." He paused for a moment, then grabbed his notebook and wrote down 4 words: mindfulness, gratitude, flexibility, and tenacity. "The first discipline," he said, pointing to the page, "is mindfulness. This is the ability to stay calm and grounded, no matter what's happening around you. When you're mindful, you don't react impulsively. You respond with intention." I knew exactly what he meant. In the past, I had often let my emotions take over, rushing into decisions, snapping at others, or feeling overwhelmed by stress. Mindfulness was about staying centered, being the calm in the chaos. "Practicing mindfulness is simple," he explained. "Spend a few minutes every morning sitting quietly with your breath. Slow down. Connect with the present moment. When you train your mind to stay still in the quiet, you'll be able to stay steady when life gets noisy." I made a note to add mindfulness to my morning practice. It wasn't enough to just plan my day. I needed to train my mind to stay calm when things didn't go according to plan. "The second discipline," he continued, "is gratitude. When life feels difficult, most people focus on what's going wrong. They forget about what's still going right. Gratitude keeps you anchored in abundance. It reminds you that even in hard times, you still have something to be thankful for." He smiled slightly. "No matter how bad things seem, there's always something to appreciate. Your breath, your health, the opportunity to start fresh. When you focus on what's good, you shift your energy from fear to strength." I knew this was true. The moments when I had felt most discouraged were always the moments I forgot what I still had. Gratitude wasn't just a feel-good practice, it was a mindset that created resilience. "The third discipline," he said, "is flexibility. Rigid thinkers struggle when life shifts unexpectedly, but those who adapt, those who learn to bend without breaking, always find a way forward." He paused, letting the words settle. "You must train yourself to pivot when things change. If your schedule gets disrupted, if a goal doesn't unfold the way you planned, or if you encounter unexpected resistance, don't panic. Adapt. Realign your focus. Trust yourself to adjust and keep moving forward." I thought about the many times I had abandoned my goals just because life got busy or unexpected obstacles appeared. Now I understood that the greatest achievers weren't those who had perfect conditions. They were the ones who knew how to shift, reset, and keep going. "And finally," he said, tapping the last word, "there's tenacity. This is the most important quality of all. When you face setbacks, and you will, tenacity is what will carry you through. It's the mindset that says, I will not quit. I will not break. I will keep showing up until I win. His voice was calm, but there was a powerful energy in his words, like he had lived this lesson himself. The truth is, he said, most people give up right before their breakthrough. They let their doubts convince them that success isn't possible. But those who refuse to quit, those who keep rising, no matter how many times they fall, those are the ones who change the world. I sat quietly, letting his words take root. I realized that I had spent much of my life giving up too early, walking away from opportunities when things became uncomfortable or difficult. But now I knew better. Growth wasn't always pretty, and progress wasn't always smooth. The key was to keep showing up, especially when it felt hard. You're stronger than you know, he said before I left. But strength isn't just built when things are easy. It's built when you decide to keep moving forward in the face of resistance. That evening, I wrote down the 4 disciplines in my journal: mindfulness, gratitude, flexibility, and tenacity. I reminded myself that challenges were not signs of failure. They were tests designed to strengthen me. I knew there would be mornings when I felt tired, days when I doubted myself, seasons when progress felt slow. But now I had the tools to stay steady, to rise above resistance, and build the life I was destined to create. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again, not just to strengthen my body, but to strengthen my mind, to practice mindfulness, to give thanks, to adapt when life demanded it, and to stay tenacious in my pursuit of greatness. No matter what storms came my way, I knew I would not break, I would rise. And I would keep rising. Chapter 12. The Early Risers Club uncovers the habit formation strategy. I woke up before my alarm again. The habit was starting to feel natural, almost effortless. My body seemed to know what time it was, as if I had reprogrammed myself to rise before the sun. The morning silence still felt powerful, like a quiet reminder that I was moving closer to the person I was meant to become. By 5 a.m. I was already outside, walking through the stillness. Each breath of fresh air seemed to strengthen my focus. The world was quiet, and in that silence I found something rare: clarity. The doubts that once clouded my mind were fading. I no longer questioned whether I could stay committed to this path. I knew I would. Later that morning, I met with my mentor once again. His calmness felt stronger than ever, the kind of confidence that only comes from years of disciplined living. You're building momentum, he said, but there's something you need to know. I nodded, ready to hear whatever lesson he had prepared. Most people fail to build lasting habits, he said. They get excited at first, they start strong. But then, after a few weeks, the excitement fades, and they slip back into old patterns. His words hit me hard. I had been there before, setting big goals, feeling motivated, only to lose my drive when the initial excitement wore off. I had always assumed this meant I wasn't disciplined enough, but now I realized there was something deeper at play. Building a powerful habit, he continued, isn't about relying on motivation. It's about mastering the habit installation protocol, a system designed to turn your new behaviors into automatic routines. I leaned in, eager to understand more. Every habit, he explained, unfolds in 3 stages. The first stage is called destruction. This is the hardest phase, the point where your mind and body resist change the most. Your old habits will fight to pull you back. It's uncomfortable, frustrating, and messy. But this stage is where growth begins. I knew exactly what he meant. The first few mornings of waking up at 5 a.m. had been tough. My body resisted, my mind tried to convince me to quit, and I felt like I was constantly battling myself. But now I understood that this discomfort wasn't a sign I was failing. It was a sign I was changing. Most people quit in the destruction phase, he continued. They mistake the discomfort for failure, but those who understand this phase lean in. They know that struggle is part of the process, and they embrace it. I nodded, reminding myself that discomfort was proof I was evolving. The second stage, he said, is called installation. This is where things start to get easier. Your mind begins to adjust, and the new behavior becomes more familiar. But this phase requires patience. The changes are happening beneath the surface, even when you can't see them. I knew I was beginning to feel that. Each morning I rose. I could feel my body adapting. The resistance was still there, but it wasn't as strong. My focus felt sharper, and my mornings had started to feel more natural. The final stage, he said, is called integration. This is where your new habit becomes second nature. It's no longer something you have to force yourself to do, it's automatic. At this point, your identity starts to shift. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to build a habit. You are that person now. I let his words sink in. This was the key I had been missing all along. Change wasn't about pushing through for a few days or weeks. It was about staying consistent long enough for my new behavior to become part of who I was. Most habits take about 66 days to install, he added, not 21 days. That's a myth. Real transformation requires time, patience, and consistency. But if you stay committed through those 3 stages, destruction, installation, and integration, your new habit will stick. I felt a surge of confidence. I had spent too many years giving up too early, assuming that struggle was a sign I wasn't good enough. Now I understood that the struggle was part of the process, a necessary step toward lasting change. The best way to stay on track, he said, is to use the 66-day commitment. For the next 66 days, commit fully. No exceptions, no excuses. Show up for yourself every morning, even on the days when you don't feel like it. He paused, then added firmly, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. I knew this would be the true test. It was easy to stay committed when I felt motivated. But the real challenge, and the real growth, would come when I showed up, even when I felt tired, distracted, or discouraged. Every time you keep your promise to yourself, he said, you build your self-respect, you strengthen your confidence, and you prove to yourself that you're someone who follows through. I felt something shift inside me, a quiet but powerful resolve. This wasn't just about building habits anymore. It was about becoming someone who refused to quit. Someone who honored their own commitments. Someone who trusted themselves. Remember, he said, habits aren't just things you do, they're expressions of who you are. Each time you rise at 5 a.m., you're not just waking up early, you're declaring to yourself that you are disciplined, that you are powerful, that you are capable of building an extraordinary life. That evening, I wrote the words destruction, installation, and integration in my notebook. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But I also knew that struggle was proof that I was growing stronger. I committed to 66 days, no exceptions, no excuses. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again, not just to build a habit, but to build a life of focus, strength, and purpose. I wasn't just waking up early anymore. I was becoming the person I had always known I could be. Chapter 13, The Early Risers Club Unlocks the 2020 Power Plan. The morning air felt cleaner than ever. Rising at 5 a.m. had become less of a battle and more of a ritual, a sacred commitment that I now understood was shaping me in powerful ways. There was no longer hesitation when the alarm rang. Instead, I felt a quiet excitement, the kind that comes when you know you're doing something important. By 5 a.m., I was outside, breathing in the cool morning air. The streets were still dark, but I felt strong. Each morning now felt like a victory, proof that I was learning to master myself. The old excuses no longer controlled me. The doubts that once held me back had begun to fade. I could feel myself stepping into a new level of focus, energy, and clarity. Later that morning, I met with my mentor. His eyes carried that same unshakable calm, the presence of someone who had walked the path of self-mastery for years. I knew today's lesson would be an important one. Now that you've committed to rising early, he said, it's time to show you how to make those morning hours extraordinary. I nodded eagerly. I had already felt the benefits of waking at 5 a.m., the quiet time, the sense of control, but I knew there was still more to unlock. Winning your morning isn't just about waking up early, he explained. It's about what you do with that first hour. The right routine, if done consistently, will activate your mind, strengthen your body, and awaken your spirit. And that's what leads to lasting transformation. He opened his notebook and wrote 3 numbers on the page. 20/20/20. This, he said, pointing to the numbers, is the 20-20-20 formula. It's the most powerful way to structure your morning, and the system that has helped the world's greatest leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives unlock their genius. He tapped the first number. The first 20 minutes, he explained, is for movement. The moment you wake up, you need to move your body. Break a sweat, get your heart rate up. Why is that so important? I asked. Because your body and brain are connected, he said. When you exercise first thing in the morning, you activate a powerful cascade of chemicals: dopamine, which fuels motivation; serotonin, which boosts happiness; and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which helps your mind grow stronger. Movement floods your body with energy and primes your mind for peak performance. I scribbled his words down, determined to make movement a cornerstone of my mornings. The second 20 minutes, he continued, is for reflection. This is where you create stillness. Spend this time journaling, meditating, or quietly thinking about your goals. Reflect on what you're grateful for. Write down your intentions for the day. This is your opportunity to create clarity before the world gets noisy. I paused, letting his words sink in. My mornings had always been cluttered, checking emails, scrolling through my phone, or rushing into tasks. The idea of starting my day in silence felt powerful, like creating calm before the storm. Without reflection, he added, you'll stay busy but disconnected. You'll rush through life, reacting to whatever comes your way. But when you take time to reflect, you reclaim your focus, you become intentional, and that's how you build an extraordinary life. He tapped the final number. The last 20 minutes, he said, is for growth. Use this time to learn. Read a great book. Watch an inspiring video. Listen to a powerful podcast. Feed your mind with insights that expand your thinking and elevate your perspective. I smiled as I wrote his words down. I had always believed that growth required hours of study, but now I realized that dedicating just 20 minutes each morning to learning could create massive change over time. Imagine this, he said. If you read just 20 minutes a day, you'll finish around 30 books a year. 30 books filled with powerful insights, wisdom that will transform the way you think, work, and live. I paused, stunned by the power of the formula. Just 1 hour, 20 minutes of movement, 20 minutes of reflection, and 20 minutes of growth had the potential to change my life. The secret, he added, is consistency. This formula only works if you protect your mornings fiercely. Treat that first hour like sacred ground. No interruptions, no distractions. Those 60 minutes belong to you, your time to strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, and nourish your soul. I realized that this was the missing piece. Waking up at 5 a.m. had given me more time, but now I knew how to use that time to fuel my growth. The 20/20/20 formula wasn't just about filling an hour, it was about building momentum that would shape my entire day. The way you start your day, he said, determines how you finish it. Master your mornings, and you'll master your life. I left the meeting feeling energized, determined to apply everything I had learned. That evening, I prepared my workout clothes and set my journal on my desk. I placed a book beside my bed, a reminder that my mornings were now reserved for learning, not distractions. The next morning, when my alarm rang at 4:45 a.m., I felt no hesitation. I moved quickly, no snooze button, no second thoughts. By 5 a.m. I was already exercising, feeling my body surge with energy. After 20 minutes, I grabbed my journal and wrote down 3 things I was grateful for, followed by my top goals for the day. My mind felt clear, focused. Then I sat with my book, feeding my mind with ideas that inspired me to think bigger. By the time the hour ended, I felt unstoppable, stronger, calmer, and sharper than I had in years. The 20-20-20 formula wasn't just a routine, it was a system that activated my best self. From that day forward, I guarded my mornings like my greatest treasure. I protected those 60 minutes fiercely, because I knew that each morning spent moving, reflecting, and growing was shaping me into someone better, stronger, and wiser. I had once believed that greatness belonged to a chosen few, but now I knew the truth. Greatness is built in the quiet hours of the morning, through small, consistent choices that compound over time. Tomorrow morning, I would rise again. Not because I had to, but because I had discovered the path to unlocking my true potential. I would move. I would reflect. I would grow. And I knew that with each morning I claimed as my own, I was building a life far greater than I had ever imagined. Chapter 14, The Early Risers Club discovers the power of rest and recovery. I had always believed that success required pushing harder, staying up late, grinding through exhaustion, and ignoring the signals my body tried to send me. For years, I had convinced myself that cutting back on sleep was the price I had to pay to achieve great things. I wore my fatigue like a badge of honor, believing it was proof of my dedication. But now, as I committed to rising at 5 a.m. each morning, I realized something important. Without proper rest, I was only operating at a fraction of my potential. I was starting to see that great achievement wasn't just about discipline and hard work. It was also about giving my body and mind the recovery they needed to perform at their best. That morning, my mentor greeted me with a knowing smile. He seemed to sense that I had reached this realization on my own. Most people get this part wrong, he said. They believe that success is about working longer hours, that the more they sacrifice sleep, the closer they get to greatness. But the truth is, sleep isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. I had spent years pushing myself past my limits, believing fatigue was something I could overcome with coffee and determination. But now I understood. No amount of hard work could replace the power of true rest. Your body isn't a machine, he continued. It's a delicate system, one that requires cycles of energy and recovery. Just like a high-performance athlete trains intensely but also allows time for rest, you need to respect your body's need to recharge. He paused for a moment, then added, "The best performers don't just work harder, they rest smarter." I listened carefully, eager to understand how I could rebuild my energy without falling back into my old patterns of overworking. There are 3 keys to mastering your sleep, he explained. 1. The 90-minute rule. Your body sleeps in cycles, roughly 90 minutes each, moving through light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. The key is to align your wake-up time with the end of one of those cycles. This is why waking up feeling exhausted has nothing to do with how long you've slept. It's about when you wake up. I had never thought of sleep in cycles before. I had always believed that more sleep was better, but now I realized that timing mattered just as much as duration. Here's what to do, he said. Count backward from the time you plan to wake up, ensuring your sleep fits into full 90-minute cycles. For example, if you plan to wake up at 5 a.m., aim to fall asleep at 9:30 p.m. or 11 p.m. This way, you wake up at the end of a complete cycle, feeling rested, not groggy. I jotted down his words, already planning how I would adjust my evening routine. 2. Digital sunset. The second key, he continued, is digital sunset. The blue light from your screen suppresses melatonin, the hormone that signals your body it's time to sleep. If you're checking emails, scrolling through social media, or binge-watching shows right before bed, you're robbing yourself of the deep rest your body needs. I knew this was true. Too often I had spent my evenings glued to my phone, only to struggle with restless sleep and groggy mornings. Starting tonight, he said, create a digital sunset. Turn off all screens at least 1 hour before bed. Instead of staring at your phone, spend that time reading a book, stretching, or meditating. Calm your mind and let your body prepare for sleep naturally. I wrote down digital sunset, committing to make this part of my evening routine. I knew this one change alone would have a powerful impact on my energy. 3. The sleep sanctuary. And finally, he said, the third key is the sleep sanctuary. Your bedroom should be a place of rest, nothing more. Keep it dark, cool, and quiet. Invest in a comfortable mattress. Remove clutter and clear anything that reminds you of work or stress. He paused, then added, your environment shapes your performance, and that includes your sleep. Treat your bedroom like a temple of rest. I realized I had never given much thought to my sleeping space. My room had always been cluttered with devices, work papers, and distractions. Now I knew that if I truly wanted to rise at 5 a.m. feeling strong, I needed to create a space that invited deep, restorative sleep. Your morning routine will only be as strong as your evening routine, he said firmly. You can't master your mornings if you're draining your energy every night. Sleep isn't time wasted. It's the foundation that makes your growth possible. I knew he was right. I had been trying to push harder, ignoring the truth that energy is the real key to success. Without rest, even the strongest discipline would eventually break down. That night, I began to make changes. I set an alarm for 9:30 p.m. to remind myself to wind down. I put my phone on silent and kept it in another room. I dimmed the lights, opened my journal, and wrote down 3 things I was grateful for. A simple practice that helped me end the day with calm and clarity. By 10 p.m., I was in bed. The room was dark and cool, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely relaxed. I let my mind settle, knowing that this rest was fueling my strength for the day ahead. When I woke up the next morning at 4:45 a.m., I felt incredible, clear, energized, and fully present. My body felt light and my mind felt sharp. I realized that this wasn't just about sleep, it was about respect. Respect for my body, my mind, and my potential. I understood now that high achievers don't just work differently, they rest differently. They know that sleep isn't a sign of weakness, it's a tool for greatness. They understand that by fueling their energy, they sharpen their focus, elevate their creativity, and unlock their highest abilities. From that day forward, I treated my sleep like my most powerful performance tool. I no longer saw rest as something I had to fit in. I saw it as an essential part of my success. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again. But this time, I knew I wasn't just waking up early. I was waking up energized, focused, and ready to own my day. I had learned that true greatness isn't built by pushing harder. It's built by creating balance, honoring both intense effort and deep rest. The combination of both is what fuels extraordinary results. I was no longer chasing success, I was building the strength to sustain it. Chapter 15: The Early Risers Club Masters, the 10 Strategies for Lifelong Brilliance. The morning felt different. I woke up with a sense of certainty. Like I was no longer just following a routine. I was becoming the kind of person who embraced excellence in every area of life. Rising at 5 a.m. was no longer something I questioned. It was now part of my identity. The old doubts, the ones that once tried to convince me to stay comfortable, had grown quiet. Each morning I felt stronger, more focused, more powerful. By 5 a.m., I was already moving, feeling the energy course through my body as I finished my workout. The silence of the early morning still felt magical, a sacred space where I could build myself before the demands of the day arrived. I knew that every morning I mastered was another brick in the foundation of a legendary life. Later that morning I met with my mentor again. His calm presence reminded me that I was still just beginning this journey. There was still so much to learn, and I was ready to absorb it. Today, he said, I want to teach you the strategies that will help you protect your focus and sustain your momentum. These are the tools the world's most productive people use to stay ahead, to unlock their genius and achieve results that most people only dream of. I grabbed my notebook, ready to write. There are 10 tactics, he explained. Master them, and you'll operate at a level most people never reach. He turned the page in his notebook and wrote, The 10 Tactics of Lifelong Genius. 1. The tight bubble of total focus. The most productive people don't just manage their time. They guard their attention like their greatest treasure, he began. They create distraction-free zones where they can focus deeply for hours at a time. This is how you produce masterwork. Block out all distractions. Turn off notifications. Eliminate interruptions. When you create a tight bubble of total focus, you'll enter a flow state, a zone where your mind becomes sharper, ideas flow easily, and you produce at a level that astonishes you. I knew this was something I needed to improve. Too often I had let distractions steal my focus. Emails, messages, and mindless scrolling had drained my mental energy. 2. The 90-91 rule. For the next 90 days, spend the first 90 minutes of your workday focused on your single most important project, he said. No distractions, no multitasking, just deep, deliberate effort on the work that will move your life forward the most. I remembered the power of focused mornings and knew this would be a game changer. Carving out 90 minutes each morning to work on my most meaningful goal would create massive progress over time. 3. The 60-10 method. After every 60 minutes of focused work, he explained, take a 10-minute break, step away from your desk, breathe deeply, stretch your body, recharge your mind. This rhythm, intense focus followed by intentional recovery, will keep your energy high all day long. I smiled as I wrote down his words. I had spent too many years grinding through endless work hours, believing fatigue was just part of success. Now I realized that energy was the ultimate advantage, and by managing my focus in cycles, I could maintain peak performance all day long. 4. The 5 daily rituals. The world's greatest achievers don't leave their success to chance, he said. They follow 5 simple rituals every day. Morning exercise to ignite energy, reflection to maintain clarity, intentional learning to expand their thinking, time with loved ones to nurture relationships, moments of solitude to renew their spirit. I paused for a moment. These weren't just habits, they were deliberate acts that kept achievers grounded, inspired, and energized. 5. Second wind workouts. Don't just exercise in the morning, he advised. Take 20 minutes in the afternoon to move your body again. A short walk, some stretching, or light cardio will give you a second wave of energy that keeps you sharp through the rest of the day. This surprised me. I had always believed one workout a day was enough. But now I understood that movement wasn't just about fitness. It was about sustaining mental focus and emotional stability. 6. The 2 Massage Protocol. The top achievers I've worked with, elite athletes, CEOs, and world-class creatives, understand that recovery is just as important as effort. Book 2 massages a week. This will reduce stress, accelerate muscle recovery, and keep your mind calm. I wrote this down, knowing that investing in recovery wasn't a luxury. It was a performance tool. 7. Traffic University. Instead of wasting time in your car or while commuting, use that time to learn, he said. Listen to audiobooks, powerful podcasts, and inspiring conversations that expand your thinking. I smiled. I had spent too much time in silence or listening to noise that added nothing to my growth. Now I knew that even my idle moments could become opportunities to improve. 8. The Dream Team Technique. The highest achievers don't try to do everything alone, he said. They build a network of mentors, coaches, and supportive friends who push them to be better. I knew this was something I needed to embrace. Too often I had tried to figure everything out on my own. Now I realized that surrounding myself with people who challenged me was the fastest way to elevate my performance. 9. The Weekly Design System. Instead of drifting through your week, he said, plan it deliberately. Block time for your most important priorities. Create space for rest, growth, and meaningful connections. Successful people don't just hope for progress, they design it. I knew this would be a powerful shift. Too often, I had let my schedule control me. Now I saw that by designing my week, I could align my actions with my deepest goals. 10. The 5-second rule of courage. Anytime you feel fear or hesitation, he said, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then take action. The mind will always try to delay what scares you, but this technique short-circuits hesitation and helps you step into boldness. I closed my notebook, feeling inspired. Each of these tactics felt like a missing piece. Powerful strategies designed to unlock focus, energy, and impact. Now it's up to you, he said. Learning these tactics is one thing. Applying them is what will transform your life. That night, I wrote out my plan. Create my tight bubble of total focus every morning. Dedicate 90 minutes to my most important work. Build my 5 daily rituals. Commit to second wind workouts. Embrace Traffic University. Build my dream team. Design my week with precision. Use the 5-second rule whenever fear tried to hold me back. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again. Not just to wake up early, but to master these tactics and build a life of extraordinary achievement. I knew that success wasn't random, it was built by design, and now I had the tools to create a future far greater than I had ever imagined. Chapter 16. The Early Risers Club embodies the rhythms of high achievement. The morning felt different. I woke up with a sense of certainty, like I was no longer just following a routine. I was becoming the kind of person who embraced excellence in every area of life. Rising at 5 a.m. was no longer something I questioned. It had become part of who I was. The old doubts, the ones that once tried to convince me to stay comfortable, had grown quiet. Each morning, I felt stronger, more focused, more powerful. By 5 a.m., I was already moving, feeling the energy surge through my body as I finished my workout. The silence of the early morning still felt magical, a sacred space where I could build myself before the demands of the day arrived. Every morning I mastered felt like another brick in the foundation of a legendary life. Yet something lingered in my thoughts. A quiet question about how to sustain this growth. I knew that bursts of effort alone wouldn't be enough. I needed a strategy, not just for winning the mornings, but for thriving in the long run. Later that morning, I met with my mentor again. His presence felt steady, the calm confidence of someone who had mastered not just achievement, but sustainability. You've been building momentum, he said. But now it's time to learn how to sustain it. I nodded, knowing this was exactly what I needed. The world's greatest achievers, he explained, understand something that most people ignore. They know that peak performance isn't about pushing hard every day without rest. It's about mastering the twin cycles of elite performance. He opened his notebook and drew two circles, one labeled high excellence cycle and the other labeled deep recovery cycle. He connected them with arrows, showing that the two phases were inseparable. The first cycle, he said, pointing to the high excellence cycle, is where you push yourself, deeply focused work, disciplined routines, intense workouts. This is where you achieve breakthroughs, build momentum, and perform at your best. I knew this cycle well, rising at 5 a.m., following the 20/20/20 formula, and committing to focused work had strengthened me mentally, physically, and emotionally. But I also knew there had been moments when I felt drained, like I was on the edge of burnout. That's why you need the second cycle, he continued, pointing to the deep recovery cycle. This is where you rest, intentionally, purposefully, and deeply. Recovery isn't just about sleep. It's about creating space to restore your mind, body, and spirit. I frowned slightly. But if I slow down, I asked, won't I lose momentum? That's the mistake most people make, he said firmly. They believe that rest is weakness, that taking time off means they're falling behind. But the truth is, your ability to perform at the highest level depends entirely on how well you recover. He paused, letting his words settle. Elite athletes know this, he added. They train intensely, then they recover intentionally. They understand that rest doesn't make them weaker. It makes them stronger. The best leaders do the same. They work with focus, then they disconnect to refuel their creativity. The great artists, the bold entrepreneurs, the top performers, they all embrace this rhythm. I realized this was the answer I had been searching for. I had spent too many years believing that the only path to success was to keep pushing harder, never slowing down, never stepping back. But now I understood that true mastery required balance, a rhythm between intense focus and intentional recovery. The key, he said, is to plan both cycles with precision. Schedule your high excellence cycles, blocks of deep work where you perform at your best, then schedule your deep recovery cycles, time to unplug, reflect, and recharge. Both are essential. I wrote down his words, determined to apply them immediately. Your high excellence cycle should be disciplined and deliberate, he explained. This is when you follow the 90-91 rule, 90 minutes of your most important work first thing in the morning. These cycles are for creativity, strategic thinking, and problem solving. He paused, then continued. Your deep recovery cycle should be equally intentional. This is when you disconnect from work, get outdoors, spend time in nature, or engage in activities that bring you joy. Meditation, yoga, long walks, these moments of stillness are where you'll recharge your energy. I realized I had been treating rest as something I would fit in when I had time. Now I understood that recovery wasn't optional. It was fuel for my best work. Think of yourself like a professional athlete, he said. They train with focus, but they protect their recovery just as fiercely. Without that balance, they burn out and their performance suffers. I nodded, feeling the power of his words. The greatest mistake you can make, he added, is believing that doing more will always get you further. True mastery isn't just about effort, it's about energy. Guard your energy, like your greatest asset. The stronger your energy, the sharper your focus, and the better your results. That night, I sat quietly with my journal, reflecting on what I had learned. I mapped out my week, carefully designing my cycles, deep focus in the mornings, deliberate recovery in the evenings. I planned my high excellence cycles around my most important projects, and I set clear boundaries for rest, time to read, time to meditate, and time to simply be. The next morning, I woke at 5 a.m., feeling calm and focused. I worked with fierce concentration, following the 90/90/1 rule to push my biggest goals forward. But when the work was done, I stepped away. I allowed myself to rest, to let go, to reset, and something remarkable happened. By the time I returned to work the following morning, I felt sharper than ever before. The clarity I experienced was unlike anything I had known, like my mind had been reset, my energy fully restored. I finally understood that rest wasn't weakness. It was strength. The great ones don't just work hard, they rest deeply. They understand that pushing forward without pause leads to exhaustion. But those who embrace the twin cycles of elite performance, those who master both focus and recovery, rise to levels most people never reach. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again, not just to push myself harder, but to master the rhythm of effort and renewal. I knew that this was the key to building a life of extraordinary results, a life designed for mastery, not burnout. I had learned that true power lies in knowing when to push and when to pause, and that balance, I knew, would lead me to greatness. Chapter 17. The Early Risers Club Champions Step into Their Heroic Potential. I woke up at 4:45 a.m. with a sense of quiet strength. The voice of hesitation, the one that once whispered excuses and temptations, was silent now. Each morning I rose at 5 a.m., I felt like I was stepping further away from my past self, the one who made promises but never kept them, the one who allowed distractions and comfort to steal his potential. But this morning felt different. It wasn't just about building habits anymore. It wasn't just about discipline or routines. Something inside me was shifting, something deeper. I felt as though I was no longer following a plan to improve my life. Instead, I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, bolder, and more capable. Later that morning, my mentor greeted me with a rare intensity. He seemed to know I was ready to receive something more profound, something that would shape my destiny in ways I couldn't yet imagine. By now, he said, you've learned how to win your mornings, protect your focus, and build powerful routines. But there's one final piece, the greatest truth of all. I leaned in, eager to absorb whatever wisdom he was about to share. Your habits are important, he said. Your morning routine, your cycles of performance and rest. These are all powerful tools. But ultimately, your greatest power lies in who you become. The greatest leaders, creators, and world changers didn't just master their routines, they mastered themselves. I felt those words land deeply. For weeks I had been working to improve what I did. Now I realized that the real work was about changing who I was. You were born with more potential than you've ever realized, he continued. But somewhere along the way, you forgot. Maybe life made you doubt yourself. Maybe past failures convinced you that you weren't capable of greatness. But none of that defines you. The truth is, you have the power to become the hero of your own life. I let those words sit in my heart for a moment. For years I had been waiting for the right opportunity, the right moment, the right circumstances. But now I realized that the power I was seeking wasn't something I had to find. It was something I had to build, from the inside out. There are 5 key shifts, he said, that separate the average from the legendary. Master these, and you'll no longer just live a life. You'll build a legacy. He opened his notebook and wrote 5 words: identity, initiative, integrity, imagination, and impact. The first shift, he said, is identity. The greatest achievers don't just build new habits, they build a new identity. They stop thinking like amateurs and start thinking like masters. They no longer say, I'm trying to be disciplined. They say, I am disciplined. They no longer say, I'm hoping to succeed. They say, I am successful. I realized that my old way of thinking had been rooted in self-doubt, as though greatness was something I had to earn. But now I understood that the fastest way to become better wasn't to chase success, it was to embody the identity of someone who deserved it. Your mind will believe whatever you repeatedly tell it, he continued. Start affirming your strength. Remind yourself every morning, I am courageous, I am strong, I am unstoppable. The more you claim this identity, the more you'll act in alignment with it. He tapped the second word, initiative. The second shift, he said, is moving from waiting to doing. Most people procrastinate on their dreams. They wait until they feel ready, until circumstances improve, or until fear disappears. But the great ones know that you must act long before you feel ready. They know that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to move forward despite it. I knew this was true. I had spent too many years waiting for confidence, for clarity, for the perfect conditions. But now I knew that progress wasn't born from waiting, it was born from action. The third shift, he said, is integrity, and this is the most important one of all. The world's greatest leaders, the ones who build true influence, are the ones who stay true to their values. They honor their word, not just to others, but to themselves. They keep their promises, no matter how small. He paused for a moment before adding, when you break your own promises, when you say you'll wake up early and then sleep in, when you commit to working on your goals but allow distractions to win, you weaken your self-respect. But every time you follow through, every time you honor your word, you build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of true greatness. I nodded, knowing that this had been one of my greatest struggles. I had let my own excuses win too often. But I knew now that each morning I rose at 5 a.m. wasn't just a routine, it was an act of self-respect. The fourth shift, he said, pointing to imagination, is learning to think bigger than you ever have before. Most people limit themselves. They believe they can only achieve what seems possible. But the legendary performers, the visionaries, they train themselves to dream without limits. They imagine impossible goals, and then they pursue them relentlessly. I smiled as I realized how small I had been thinking. For too long I had played it safe, setting goals that seemed reasonable rather than ones that scared me. But now I understood that real growth only happens when you expand your vision far beyond what feels comfortable. And finally, he said, there's impact. The greatest lives aren't just about success. They're about significance. The real masters dedicate themselves to serving others, to creating something that improves the world. He paused for a moment, then added, you'll never feel truly fulfilled until your life is about something bigger than yourself. The greatest joy isn't found in achievement alone. It's found in using your gifts to uplift others. I closed my notebook and sat quietly for a moment, reflecting on his words. I knew this was the ultimate lesson, the one that tied everything together. Mastering my mornings, building powerful habits, and strengthening my focus were all important. But none of it would matter unless I stepped fully into the person I was meant to be. You're stronger than you know, he said. But you must claim it. Decide that from this moment forward, you will no longer play small. No more waiting. No more doubting. No more letting fear win. Step into your strength. Embody the identity of the person you know you're meant to become. I knew this wasn't just about motivation. It was about a choice to rise, not just at 5 a.m., but in every area of my life. A choice to act with courage, to lead with integrity, to expand my imagination, and to leave a lasting impact. That night, I wrote down a single sentence in my journal: I am the hero of my life. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I would rise again, not just as someone building better habits, but as someone determined to create a life of strength, wisdom, and purpose. I was no longer waiting for the right moment. I was the moment. And I was ready to rise. Chapter 18. Final word. Transcending boundaries and reaching new heights. The journey had changed me. What started as a decision to wake up at 5 a.m. had become something much deeper, a path towards self-mastery, purpose, and impact. The lessons I had learned along the way were no longer just ideas in my notebook. They had become the foundation of the person I was becoming. I had discovered that true greatness wasn't about talent alone. It was about showing up consistently, building powerful routines, and leaning into discomfort. I had learned that growth wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. Each morning I had risen at 5 a.m. was another brick in the foundation of my new identity, one that was built on courage, discipline, and focus. But what mattered most wasn't the routines themselves. It was who I had become through them. I no longer felt like I was reacting to life. I had become the architect of my days, designing my mornings with precision and purpose. My mind felt sharper, my body felt stronger, and my spirit felt clearer. The fog of uncertainty that once clouded my thoughts had been replaced by a quiet confidence, a knowing that I had the power to face whatever challenges life would bring. The fears that had once held me back, the doubts, the excuses, the hesitation, no longer controlled me. I had learned that fear is simply growth in disguise, an invitation to step into the strongest version of myself. The more I leaned into discomfort, the more I realized that courage isn't something we're born with. It's something we build by choosing to act despite the voice of doubt. I had also come to understand that true success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about what you contribute. The greatest fulfillment came not from chasing my own goals, but from using my skills, my strengths, and my energy to serve others. When I focused on adding value, life seemed to expand. My impact grew, my relationships deepened, and my sense of purpose flourished. The discipline I had built through my morning routine had created something powerful, momentum. And I knew now that momentum was the key to mastery. Each morning I showed up, even when I didn't feel like it, was a reminder that consistency is the ultimate separator between those who achieve extraordinary results and those who simply wish for them. But most importantly, I had discovered that the greatest battle wasn't against external circumstances, it was the inner war we all face, the war between the part of us that seeks comfort and the part of us that craves growth. the part of us that makes excuses, and the part of us that demands excellence, the part of us that wants to quit, and the part of us that refuses to give up. The greatest victory, I realized, is when we choose to rise beyond our fears, our doubts, and our limits. And that's what 5 a.m. had given me, a chance to rise. Each morning became a reminder that I had the power to shape my life, that I was no longer a prisoner of my old patterns, but a creator of my future. And with each morning I claimed for myself, I was building a life of strength, courage, and purpose. The journey isn't over, and it never will be. Mastery isn't a destination, it's a way of living. The most extraordinary lives aren't built by those who rise once, they're built by those who rise every day, no matter what. Tomorrow morning, at 5 a.m., I will rise again, not just to strengthen my body, sharpen my mind, and connect with my spirit, but to remind myself that I am capable of far more than I once believed. And when I face doubt, uncertainty, or fear, I will remember this truth: we all have the power to rise. And when we choose to rise, day after day, hour after hour, we awaken something powerful within us, the strength to create a life of mastery, impact, and meaning. And that, I know now, is what it means to truly live. And with that, we've reached the end of part 2 and the conclusion of Early Riser's Blueprint. Unlock your potential at sunrise. We hope this comprehensive guide has truly transformed your mornings and unlocked your full potential. If you've experienced significant changes in your life, we'd love to hear about them in the comments. And to continue your journey of personal growth and optimization, subscribe for more content designed to elevate your life beyond the sunrise.